Prosecutors now say this one involves more than $1 million in government welfare, all tied to a Massachusetts restaurant.
America, a Dominican restaurant owner and his Venezuelan accomplice just got busted for stealing $1 million.
The owner of El Primo, 37-year-old Raul Fernandez Vicioso, and 3 others, including 2 Venezuelan nationals, used stolen identification.
They also stole $700,000 in C-19 unemployment funds and used the money to buy a property in the Dominican Republic.
We walked into El Primo restaurant in Leominster looking for answers, but no one was available to take our questions. What's advertised as a home for authentic Dominican dishes, federal officials say was a hub for fraud.
And while Massachusetts prosecutors are finally busting these fraud rings,
close to 2 million people living in Illinois rely on SNAP benefits to help get food on that table, but that number will soon drop as new federal guidelines are set to go into effect today.
But here's what they're not telling you. The verification system is still broken, and criminals know exactly how to exploit them. What is up, guys? Tyson DeLaCruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Let me show you how Massachusetts became one of the SNAP fraud capitals of America. Let me break down this restaurant operation because it is a masterclass on how to rob American taxpayers while pretending to run a legitimate business.
Authorities say the lead defendant is Raul Fernandez Vicioso, a naturalized U.S. citizen from the Dominican Republic, who ran a Massachusetts restaurant called El Primo.
Already, the name is perfect here. El Primo means the cousin in Spanish, and this guy treated SNAP fraud like a family business.
Prosecutors say he and 3 co-defendants, 2 here illegally from Venezuela, unlawfully obtained SNAP benefits in what is being called a multi-state fraud operation.
Here's how the scam worked. They bought stolen identities from identity theft rings. Those are places where you can buy these things. They used those identities to file SNAP benefits and pandemic unemployment assistance between 2023 and 2025. They pulled in over $400,000 in EBT cards alone. But here's where the real money came from. Once they had the EBT cards, they went to wholesalers and bought bulk food using the stolen benefits. We're talking about pallets of food, industrial quantities like Costco, Sam's Clubs, and then loaded up their restaurant shelves with that food and sold it to customers for cash. They basically got the food free using stolen SNAP benefits, then sold it at full retail prices and pocketed 100% of the cash.
Use the stolen EBT cards to purchase large quantities of expensive bulk food items at no expense to themselves, but at considerable expense to taxpayers.
Every meal sold at El Primo was funded by American tax dollars stolen through identity theft and SNAP fraud. This wasn't a restaurant, guys. This was a money laundering operation disguised as a Dominican eatery. Now, let me show you the scale of the identity theft that made this operation possible, because this is where the fraud gets absolutely brazen. Investigators found 117 EBT applications just connected to 2 apartments in Providence, Rhode Island. Think about that. 117 people, 2 apartments. That's not even trying to hide it. That is blatant fraud with zero concern about getting caught. These weren't random identities. They were stolen from real American people whose personal information was being used to file fake benefit applications. But here's the thing. They didn't need to be subtle because nobody was checking. Massachusetts and Rhode Island were processing SNAP applications with 0 verification. You could file 117 applications with the same address and nobody would flag anything suspicious. But the fraud didn't stop with SNAP. These same criminals also filed fraudulent pandemic C-19 unemployment claims in at least 5 states using bogus documentation. They collected more than, get this, $700,000 in C-19 funds on top of the SNAP fraud. Speaking of systems that are supposed to help people but end up getting exploited by criminals, my subscribers have been loving Chapter, and the feedback has been incredible. If you're 65 or older dealing with Medicare, you know how confusing it can be. And just like these SNAP fraudsters exploiting a broken system, system, there are plenty of people trying to take advantage of seniors with Medicare. That is why Chapter is different. They actually protect you from getting ripped off. Their trusted advisors work with you, not the insurance companies. No games, no exploitation, just honest guidance to find Medicare coverage that actually works for your situation and your budget. The response from you guys have been absolutely amazing. People are finally getting Medicare help they can trust. If you want somebody who actually has your back instead of trying to exploit you like these criminals, call 270-467-0614. Again, that number is 270-467-0614, or go to askchapter.org/Tyson. That's askchapter.org/Tyson. Don't let the system take advantage of you. Now back to how they stole $700,000 in C-19 funds.
They purportedly collected more than $700,000 in COVID funds and allegedly even used some of that stolen money to help pay for property in the Dominican Republic.
So the total haul, $400,000 in SNAP benefits plus $700,000 in pandemic unemployment equals $1.1 million stolen from American taxpayers. They used some of that stolen money to help pay for property in the Dominican Republic. They literally bought real estate in another country with money they stole from American welfare programs. Now let me connect this to another massive SNAP fraud bust in Massachusetts because the pattern is almost identical.
Two Massachusetts store owners have been charged in a $7 million trafficking scheme defrauding the SNAP benefits program. The U.S. Attorney's Office says both these small grocery stores in Mattapan were getting up to $500,000 in SNAP redemptions per month.
For small variety stores, that, my friends, is not normal. That is absolute fraud. Quickly, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, let me tell you how this operation worked. They were exchanging benefits for cash and alcohol. So people would come in with the EBT cards. The store owner would give them cash at a discount, maybe 50 cents on the dollar. The store owners would bill the full amount to SNAP, and they were selling meal packs from nonprofits that were supposed to be sent to charities overseas that were actually never meant to be sold in stores. And just like the restaurant fraud, the numbers were crazy absurd here.
Another red flag, prosecutors say only about 10% of SNAP transactions were for amounts under $40, while more than 70% of transactions exceeded $95, which is unusual activity for a small variety store.
Normal SNAP purchases are small. We're talking about milk, bread, eggs, not $95 plus transactions over and over again. But here's what makes both cases identical. They were using stolen identities to file fake applications. They were operating out of a small business that nobody was monitoring. They were billing SNAP for services and products that were actually never provided. The restaurant stocked shelves with stolen benefits. The grocery store exchanged benefits for cash. Same scam, different wrapper. This is now, I think, the third video that we've done on SNAP fraud, specifically in Massachusetts. If you want to see the full breakdown of the $7 million grocery store scam we covered about a month ago, you can check it out. I'll place a link for it above or in the description down below, and I'll also put it at the end of this video as well. So check it out. Now, let me show you what's changing with SNAP eligibility, because these new rules sound strict to lazy people, but unfortunately, they don't fix the verification problem that allowed fraud to flourish in the first place.
Among the changes, adults 18 to 64 without dependents under 14 must be working, participating in SNAP employment and training programs, or volunteering for at least 80 hours per month to receive the benefits.
If they don't meet those requirements, they can only get SNAP for 3 months in a 3-year period. But here's the problem, at least in my opinion, these rules don't address identity verification. They don't stop criminals from filing fraudulent applications, 117 applications in 2 apartments like we mentioned earlier. They don't prevent stolen identities from being used to get EBTs. It's going to be a process here. They just add requirements for legitimate recipients while the fraud can still potentially continue, but I think it'll be significantly reduced here. And effective April 1st, some immigrants who previously qualified are no longer eligible for SNAP benefits, which is good. This includes refugees, asylum seekers, certain human trafficking victims, and others. So the federal government is tightening restrictions on legal immigrants who came here the right way, while the verification system that would catch illegal immigrants using stolen identities kind of needs some work on. And listen to how politicians are framing this. Local and state leaders are concerned about the changes.
Access to food is not just about filling a plate. It is not just about calories. It is about fueling our bodies. It is about mental health. It is about preventing chronic health conditions.
Translation, to me, it sounds like they're trying to reframe SNAP as a healthcare program instead of a food assistance program so they can justify permanent benefits. But SNAP was never supposed to be a permanent solution. It is supposed to be temporary assistance while you get back on your feet. Now, let me show you what happens when the federal government actually decides to prosecute fraud instead of enabling it.
As for the U.S. Attorney, she says her office is naming a fraud coordinator for the District of Massachusetts because she believes state officials aren't interested in prosecuting fraud or even beefing up security measures to ensure it doesn't happen in the first place. So, Mark Eady, the feds have to step in, which seems like a running theme.
The reporter nailed it here. Feds have to step in, which seems like a running theme because blue states like Massachusetts won't prosecute fraud. They care more about not criminalizing poverty than protecting taxpayers from getting robbed. And remember, this is now the third major SNAP fraud bust that we'd covered in Massachusetts alone. The $7 million grocery store scheme, the $1 million restaurant scam, and there are many cases coming down the pipe. This is not an isolated incident. This is systematic here. Raul Fernandez Veseo and his crew are facing multiple federal charges. If and when convicted, they're looking at some serious prison time. But my friends, here is the problem. Every fraud ring the feds bust, there are probably dozens more operating right now because of the previous administration and that they haven't got caught yet. Because the system was designed to make fraud easy and prosecution hard. America, a Massachusetts restaurant owner and his Venezuelan accomplice just got busted for stealing $1 million in SNAP benefits using 117 stolen identities. They used our tax dollars to stock restaurant shelves, then bought a property in the Dominican with the proceeds. Last month, 2 grocery store owners got caught stealing $7 million using the exact same playbook. The pattern is identical, and state officials seemingly look the other way. Meanwhile, new SNAP rules add work requirements for legitimate recipients, but currently do nothing to fix the broken verification system that allow criminals to use fake documents. Massachusetts state officials refuse to prosecute fraud, forcing the U.S. attorney to create a fraud coordinator position because the feds have to step in. That's where we are. Blue states protecting criminals while the federal government cleans up the mess. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.